Mainstream modern science is all about material everything and foundations, and that's why they have this whole thing called science fact, because they're more worried about appeasing a human ego and mind, which is, I need familiarity, I need all this other, material, physical stuff. If I don't have that, it has to be impossible.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, God forbid, you go into an existential crisis,
Existential crisis.
or you just immediately get thrown in a psych ward for an evaluation because you don't, you're not obeying the mainstream and the bootlicking the mind that as everyone else agrees upon certain things or whatever. And that's why quantum science is better than mainstream. That's why I emphasize that. But that's also why I really hate mainstream science, modern mainstream science, because most of it's actually inaccurate and or it's fraudulent. It's fabricated out of thin air because there's a big amount of PACs and all these other corporations or other rich interests that go and they pay for these studies to output, what they want them to output. So that it favors them, so they have a better bottom line and they have a bigger monopoly. It's really frustrating. We can see that rampant today, which of course makes all of us lunatics and all of our conspiracy theorists, of course, because that would never be true.
Yeah.
Much like all the people walking into Nazi Germany said at the time. All the Germans were like, that'll never happen to us. We wouldn't let that happen. And guess what happened? They sleepwalked themselves right in, apathetically. Because, well, it's absolutely factually correct. I mean, this would never happen to us, and it did. So,
Exactly. Ultimately, that's literally the same thing that even history is based off of. Like recently, I was what was it called? Watching a video of this guy who supposed that there was a that the society, the Sumerians, if you will, that they actually created a system, know that there was at least 12 planets in our solar system. So it makes you wonder, how the heck did they come up with that? Because even though science, or rather historical fact, says it can't happen.
what do you mean it can't happen in terms of
Well,
the
so
planets?
as far as history has concerned,
Yeah.
history has determined that there was only one group has determined what astronomy has 12 planets, and that was the Greeks. Thousands of years later.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Which technically, people nowadays with astronomy, right? We have the debate also about where and this is all the astronomers, right? That have been around forever. Some of them are the most regarded, well regarded, or whatever, and they still fucking are warring over Pluto being a true planet or not, or even if it's not a true planet, a dwarf planet, which is apparently different than a true planet. And then they'll do war over that because a lot of them will say it's not even a dwarf planet. I can't remember what the heck the thing is now that they're trying to claim or something. It's not a moon. I can't remember what the heck it was, and it's just like. Actually, that also makes me think of and give the example of evolution, because they do this all the time with evolution. Like, they still can't decide what the fuck a raccoon is. Because,
Oh, you're kidding.
what was it? I think it was like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, they were like, we're pretty sure, they weren't sure, they didn't have it categorized, but like, we're pretty sure it's probably a feline. Because they can get feline distemper and they have a lot of cat-like behaviors and they love to be around cats for some reason, so they'll raid their food or whatever. So I guess whatever. But then at the same time, it was like another 5 to 10 years later, then they're like, actually, we're gonna officially categorize it as its own species. And then I think it was within the last like 5 years, I saw that a lot of these experts were saying it's like, actually, we're pretty confident it actually belongs to canids, so it's a type of dog or related to dogs. And I'm like, here we fucking go. So like, you can't even decide on that. You can't decide on what the fuck a dinosaur was, if it was feathered, if it wasn't, if they came from birds, if the birds came from them. You can't decide if we came from primates. There's literally all this research is coming out like, oh, actually now they're like, now we actually believe we didn't descend from primates. But at the same time, I've literally heard legitimate experts in the evolutionary field that are like, including anthropology, evolutionary anthropology, that are like, humans, because that's anthropology. Humans are, the ancestors are, or rather, they're the evolution of whales, of a branch of whales. We come from whales. I've heard we come from birds, and I've seen we've come from pigs. So porcine, and I'm just like. And I've noticed it's a cycle, because if you look far enough back, it's like they just go through this like cycle or rotation between these things over and over again. And it's like, what? Hello? You know, like, if you're so confident and you always say this is absolute fact and you can't contest evolution, why the fuck can't they agree on anything?
Exactly.
Half the time. They still also, they know for a fact that, an example, gators and crocodiles, at least, if not also others in their family, like caimans and gharials, are dinosaurs. They didn't just come from the Cretaceous, if not further back. They also have been virtually genetically unchanged, which means evolution, they haven't evolved at all. They're the same pretty much as they were before at their last supposed evolutionary change during the years of the dinosaurs, that they were dinosaurs, because they would have came from things like Caprosuchus and things like that, which were dinosaurs officially. But they won't ever say that they're dinosaurs. They insist that they're not dinosaurs at all. They just happen to come from then, and they're virtually unchanged, which, like, they are literally dinosaurs. But they're like picky about that. It's super, super dumb and frustrating. And there's so many other examples of that. Like, one of the other evolutionary examples I like to come up with is the supposed proof that evolution is absolute fact and true, because this is an unalienable fact. So it's absolutely, it never changes. This is factually across all of evolution that proves it to be true, is that with evolution, anytime a species evolves to the point where they have more negative traits, especially a lot more, substantially more negative survival traits than genetically, than they have positive for survival, they are innately going to go extinct every time, and they always have. Except we have koalas, and we still have kiwis, and we still have all these other animals like those, where they are almost entirely negative in their survival traits. Because, like, an example, koalas are so sleepy, and they sleep more than sloths do, because they move less than sloths, because they are so ran down in their metabolism, such a slow metabolism, because they evolved to only be able to eat a specific type of eucalyptus, and it's a highly toxic eucalyptus that they can only eat. But they've developed this ability to digest it, except they can't naturally digest it unless they eat this poop from their parents. And so then they have to go through that process, but then they eat it, and because it's so toxic, they can technically tolerate it, but they technically aren't, they're not immune to it. So that's why they sleep like 18 to 20 hours a day. And that's why whenever Australia has these big, wildfires, or they call them bushfires, there's just like, all these people have to try to go in and rescue these sleepy fucking koalas, babies on their backs and stuff, because they're just asleep. They're just narcoleptic because they can't fucking move. And then also, because there's so much minimal water in their eucalyptus, they are also like pretty much perpetually dehydrated. And so like, they're so slow because they have a bunch of like lactic acid and other buildups in their muscles at all times because of the eucalyptus toxin, because that's one of the things it does. And so, and plus it also is like such a high level of metabolism requires that their whole body pretty much has to sleep so that they can metabolize the fucking eucalyptus they eat. So like literally there's no reason for them to still be existing and surviving. So they literally... But guess what? They could directly, clearly prove that that is not actually a universal fact of evolution, and that apparently sometimes, with nothing but negative traits, you somehow still exist. For thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or even up towards millions of years. Kiwis are also one that has a load of more negative traits than positive traits for survival, and they're still there. Like, one of the main thing that everyone thinks of is the whole egg to body ratio, because their eggs are... literally, I think it takes up like half or like 2/3 of their entire body cavity is their egg. It's just...
Is their egg.
Yes, and then they have to shove that fucker out to lay it. Can you imagine, like, if a human woman had a uterus that stretched to the size where it was below their knees, like a quarter of the way down the shin, and then up to their clavicle... That's basically a kiwi with a full egg inside of itself. Wow. And there's so much about it that doesn't make any sense. And so like that's why I love harping against evolution a lot, because I'm like, hello? Because this is the stuff that they always flaunt. And they're like, this proves us so accurate and right. They always are arrogantly and staunchly or flamboyantly just like, and that's why evolution is absolutely truth. And yet it's like, I can immediately then take that exact set of things that supposedly prove you're consistently factually correct and non-contestable, and it's very much legitimate across the board, and immediately use it against itself.
One of the rules for evolution is basically survival of the fittest, is it not?
Well, that's the thing, though. That's one of the things that annoys me about evolution.
Exactly.
Is they always say, "Oh, it's survival of the fittest." No, that's Darwinism. And Charles Darwin went out not to prove evolution. He went to disprove it and creationism both.
Oh,
he was
man.
actually being very cynical about it. He wanted to prove that he was right and that it's actually this much more simplistic and it's basic in terms of environmental factors. Survival of the fittest is the most hyper simplistic way you could put it, and that is what Darwinism is. And then evolution saw that and we're like, well, let's cherry pick things like we're forming a religion back in, the year 10.